Welcome to A Mason's Work, the podcast where we review Masonic symbols and illustrate how they can be used to solve problems in everyday life. With your host, Brian Mattox, a proud member of the Craftsman Online Media Network.
In continuing to explore why someone might be negative and stay sort of stuck where they're at and then kind of keep perpetuating that negativity, we talked about, fear and getting that attention kind of needs met by complaining and commiserating. And then I alluded to yesterday about the fear of success. I want to talk about that for a minute because the fear of success is essentially a technique that your mind will use to keep you stuck. And it's not just fear of success by itself, it's the fear of the unknown in a positive way, which ironically keeps you stuck negatively. When we talk about being successful at solving the problem, you then have a real issue with the devil you know versus the devil you don't. For a lot of folks, the uncertainty that comes after solving a problem is worse in many cases than the problem itself. This turns into a fear of success. If I was successful at solving this problem, what might others demand of me moving forward? If I was able to do this, does this mean I can no longer make mistakes? If I'm successful at solving this problem, what new problems emerge that might be harder or worse to deal with? And all of this is a technique the mind uses. It's a misapplication of the level. It is projecting today's problems into the future. It is suggesting that the problems we have today are going to be magnified or meaningfully different or harder to process in some sort of future state. And so these fears, combined with the ones yesterday that keep you stuck, all conspire to essentially keep you rooted in inaction, to keep you stuck in reflection and perpetual kind of rumination and feeling, awful about a lot of things. And so if you want to get past the beginning of the process of getting past this negativity is understanding kind of what's going on. And in order to do that, you have to also understand this last little bit. And this last bit is, what are you actually feeling? Grab your secretary's apron, maybe literally, maybe figuratively, and put it on for a moment. And you're going to remember that the secretary's job is to separate fact from fiction. You have a ton of signals your body's giving you at all times. Some of those signals are noise, and some of them are important to pay attention to. When the signals are noise, they're essentially feelings that you're going to move through. They're not long-term conditions. And so when you're, for example, lifting weights and you feel that burn or that flex or the pump in your muscles, those are designed sort of responses that happen when you exercise those muscles in a physical way. So those you don't have to worry about as much. You just need to note that they're there. And some folks are looking for that as an indicator that they have essentially stressed themselves or stressed their body sufficiently. When we look at some of the other signals that your body is going to be getting, maybe an injury, maybe a prolonged, repeated inability to find joy in the things that you found joy in the past, these are a little bit more significant. You need to pay attention to them because it could mean the onset of depression. It could mean the onset of an entrenched way of thinking that becomes the new normal for you. And so we're trying to avoid this new normal becoming essentially this entrenchment that is much, much harder to get out of. When you find someone that's operating from a negative worldview or from a negative perspective, what you'll find is if you try and engage their conversation, if you try and talk to them about it, and you might even note this in your own mind, the conversation can't stay focused. You get in this whack-a-mole situation where if you are old enough, you might remember a video game or a is it a video game? A game at the arcade. And in the game, you had a hammer in your hand or a big padded object, and these gophers would pop out of holes, or moles would pop out of holes. And so you would hit them with the hammer, and they would go back and down the hole, and you'd score points. This whack-a-mole game was fun and novel because you never knew which gopher was going to pop up. And the same way, in a conversation with somebody who's negative, they're going to keep bringing up stuff that seems completely irrelevant to maintain that status quo. And your mind will do this too if you're not careful. Your mind will keep bringing in, but what about this? Or but what about that? Or but, oh no, it was the other day, this happened, and that's exact proof. And all of that stuff is noise. It's fabricated. You can't argue against any one of these things. None of that will work. It is not productive. You are busy trying to change the direction of the wind while you're in the wind. It doesn't work. So, how can we work on solving some of this negativity, this sort of mental thought currents that are just blowing folks around? We're going to get into more of this tomorrow.
The views represented in this podcast are those of the speaker alone and are not representative of any grand or subordinate lodge.
Hi, Brian here. I wanted to thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have any suggestions or guidance for further episodes you'd like to see or hear, whatever the case may be, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at amasonswork.com. and we will try and incorporate your suggestions into a future recording. Thanks.
Freemasonry teaches us that the true work is within, a lifelong journey of reflection, discipline, and discovery. At A Mason's Work, we help Masons bring out their best selves through meaningful self-inquiry and symbolic practice. From personal reflection to lodge engagement, we offer tools that turn symbols into action. Visit us at amasonswork.com. The work is within. The time is now.